Thank you for tuning in to the Shop Worldwide. My name is Michael. I have the 94 Jeep Grand Cherokee with me today. It's been having some issues overheating, so we are going to do a couple repairs on the cooling system. Don't know when they have been done last, if they've been done at all. The Jeep does have over 261,000 miles now, so I don't think it'll hurt to go ahead and take care of some of the stuff. So we're going to do the water pump, the bypass hose that hooks to that water pump, and then we're going to do the thermostat and thermostat housing as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get the Jeep pulled in and get it up in the air first, and then we'll start taking care of things. Alright, so there's a skid plate, excuse me, under the front of the vehicle. I see these 2 bolts there, 2 bolts there. I'm going to pull those down to get those out of the way first. And now that that's out of the way, you can see the drain right there. So we're going to get the radiator completely drained out first, and then we will go further from there. Looks like it's going to make a mess either way. It kind of splashed all the way back there. So doing the best we can to collect as much of it as we can and not let it end up down there. Alright, next we're going to get this upper radiator hose off. There's a bolt there and a bolt there. So we're going to use an extension with a swivel and a 13mm. And then we will try to get our magnet in there to pull these out. Then we'll go ahead and remove this part of the hose. Alright, that way we can pull the entire thing out all at once. Now we have the entire piece off here. We're going to get that thermostat out and clean that up some. Alright, I kind of pushed that with a flathead screwdriver, and then I was able to, excuse the hairy arm there, to kind of get it out. And that will go back down in, spring side down. So I'm going to clean that up some, and then we'll get the new one in there. These will be the new parts going in. I will put the link in the description for all these. The gasket came with the thermostat housing there, so I didn't have to buy that separately. And I got the thermostat there, which I'm going to put, like I said, spring down. Alright, we got that new thermostat in. I'm going to get this gasket here on top and in place, and then we'll worry about getting that housing on after that. Alright, so I got this one on, but not snug. This side I'm going to get on next. First I just lined up the hole, and I'm going to use the magnet and then push it down in there. Once it gets screwed on, I'll be able to push the magnet off. Next we just got that hose back in place in there. On that front housing, do make sure the tab is facing the front of the engine. There's a little tab on it. I think it might show it on this one. No, it doesn't. The new one does have a black tab. It sticks up a little bit, and that will go toward the front of the engine. Next, before we get started on the other stuff, we're going to remove this hose clamp here that goes to the heater core, and also the one from the other side. Let's see, I'll come around to it. Down there under the intake. We're going to undo both of those, and we are going to flush the heater core. So I'm going to undo those real quick, then we're going to get our water hose not on a high pressure. We're just going to push water through it both ways to make sure there's nothing blocking that up. Alright, as you see here, I just hooked that nozzle, pushed it straight in there, turned it on, let water and coolant flow through there, as it still has a little coolant in the core, and did the same thing. Put water in through this way, and it came out the other way. So flushed at both directions. Seems to be flowing just fine. Blocked heater core isn't the issue, but it doesn't hurt to flush it out. So next we're going to get this put back together, and then we'll start on what's next. Next we're going to remove the overflow tank and clean it out. As you can see in there, it's kind of crusty. So we're going to remove 2 bolts there, 1 here, and the hose to it, and pull it out. The 2 nuts in a bolt are going to be 10mm. So got them, all 3 of those off. So we're going to get this off and the hose unclamped there, and then we're going to pull it out. Alright, now you see I got it out. I did unplug this from here and removed it from the water tank. I'm gonna clean it too. As you see, it's pretty filthy. Probably will replace the entire thing in the near future. It's not hard to get out, so for now I'm just gonna clean it up though. Alright, so I got them both out. Got my super clean here. So I'm gonna spray them both down, not on the electrical part here, but down on the float and in the overflow container. Alright, I got them coated down, got a bunch of it inside the container. I'm gonna add some water in there after I rinse it off on the outside and shake it up real good. Try to break some of that stuff loose on the inside. And after I rinsed it out really well, went ahead and got it bolted back in place and got the electronics hooked back up to it too. So right now I'm not going to put anything in it at the moment because I'm still working on getting everything else done with the cooling system. And now we're back on the next day. I ran out of time last night. I got finished up with that coolant overflow tank, put it back in, threw some water in the radiator after I hooked everything back up, and just parked it overnight. So I am letting it run for a second now. We're gonna get it back in the shop, get it back up in the air, and we're gonna pull that lower radiator hose and let everything kind of wash out of it, wash out of the engine and out of the radiator. It's a bigger opening than the drain is, so hopefully I can get more out if there's anything left in there that needs to come out. And then we'll work on starting to get the water pump out. Now that we're back in here, I'm gonna go ahead and get the fan shroud off first. And to do that, I have to get these two nuts off that are 10 millimeter, and then a fan clutch removal tool to get the fan clutch off, and then that all comes off together. So first I'm gonna get the 10 millimeters off and get that loose, and then work on getting that clutch fan off. Alright, the fan shroud itself is loose now. I am gonna use a fan clutch removal tool here. It'll be this piece along with this bar attached to an air hammer. It's a little bit different than the one I've used before. The other ones I've used, can't see it really well, but there's two holes on that pulley there, and it has a fork that goes around that nut, and they stick in that hole, and then you have another wrench that twists the nut. This one's a bit different. Never used one like this before. We're about to try it out though. So the hook is on that nut there, and that comes up to the air hammer. So we're gonna try it out. Alright, so I have broken it loose and started undoing it. You can see the threads there. So we're just going to finish screwing that off, getting the entire fan and fan shred out, and then we can begin on the next steps. Now that that is out of the way, we're going to go ahead and lift the Jeep up and drain it from that lower radiator hose down there. Alright, so another look at the lower radiator hose from the other direction. Just going to undo that hose clamp and let it all drain down in here. It's going to be mostly water because that's all I put in it last night, but mostly just to flush it out some and get the bigger particles out that might not have come out of that drain. Alright, so here is after I've begun draining it. Looks like a good bit of green coolant is still coming out. So I'm going to just leave that undone now at this point and bring the vehicle back down. I'm going to run fresh water through the radiator just to flush the rest of the green out. It's not what's supposed to be in there anyways. And then run it through the top side of the engine as well, so it'll come out the hose. Alright, went and took the cap off. Used the water hose to run water through the radiator, kind of just let the water hit the floor here, and I'll squeegee it up. I'm sure I'm going to make more of a mess whenever I get the water pump off here. so not too concerned at the moment about a little bit of water on the floor. So next we're going to go ahead and get the belt off. We're going to undo it with the tensioner pulley here. So I'm going to get a wrench and we'll get that tensioner pulley over some so I can get that belt off. So it's going to be a 5/8. So all you're going to do is take this wrench, push it over, and that'll put slack in the belt as you see there. Use the other hand to move the belt over and off the pulleys so you can get it off. Not going to be able to do that with only one hand, so I'm going to set you down. Alright, next we're going to disconnect the negative terminal on the battery because we're going to move the alternator. We just don't want anything to start sparking. So remove negative cable, and then we're going to remove this bolt down here and this one here and move the alternator off to the side. We're not going to unplug anything. We're just going to kind of move it over out of the way because we need to get this whole bracket here off in order to get to that hose right there on the water pump. It's going to be the bypass hose. We also bought one of those to replace it. The only time you're really going to be able to replace it is when the water pump is off and that bracket is out of the way. So we're going to go ahead and do that while we're in here. Now you can see we got that negative battery terminal off. It's going to be a 14mm on top and bottom here. So I'm going to go ahead and get those off. And then we'll continue from there. The bottom bolt there has a nut on the back of it. Looks like that there. So remember to put a wrench on the back of that nut. And next we'll get the bolt off the dipstick right there that's holding that on. So we can move that kind of off that bracket. So we picked up that alternator and just kind of rotated it around like that. Everything's still plugged into it. Didn't undo any grounds or nothing. Just kind of picked it up and turned it like that. So next we're going to work on the AC here. These are 13mm. I'm going to go ahead and pull those off. There's also some in the back here and there. So we're going to get those 4 off and get the AC compressor out of the way next. Okay, so I got it moved out of the way. Went ahead and undid this top radiator hose just so I could have a little more play, a little more room. And so I got it moved off into the side. Next we're going to get this whole accessory bracket off and out of here. So we're going to get the idler pulley off. We're going to get this bracket unhooked here, and then we'll start on these bolts there. There's another one behind that idler pulley, which is why we'll be taking that off, and then this one here and this one here, and then there's also one more down there. So may have to get the power steering out of the way too. We'll see when we get there. I got most of these out, but I do need to move this power steering pump out of the way. So as you see, it has the holes in the pulley here. You're going to go through it, the holes, and line up on the nut there, or bolt, excuse me. So there's one there, and then there's another one. I don't know if you can see it, but there it is. So there's the other one. So we're going to get those 2 off and just kind of push this over to the right so we can get to this one here, and then there's another one down there we got to get to. So that is where those 3 bolts went. There's one on top, one to the left, and one at the bottom. Now we can reach this and this, get those 2 out, and then they should be able to pull away after that. We are going to kind of wiggle this. This is just kind of pressed in. So I'm going to try to wiggle that out in just a moment after we get this out of the way. And see, this just pulls straight out. It doesn't thread in or anything. It does have a little rubber ring here, which will be replaced on the new one. So once this is out of the way, you can get to this last bolt here. Now that that's out of the way, we have a lot more room to work. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect both of the hoses, this lower hose here, and then we're going to get this one disconnected, the bypass hose there, and we are going to replace that as well. And then we will start working on getting the bolts off for the water pump. And from what I've been kind of looking into, it's important to make sure we put those bolts back in the same spots they come out of. So we're going to be careful with that. We're just going to keep them on, and we're going to put them back in the pump itself. So when the new one goes on, I know exactly which way they go. And that's what we're left with. The hose, I just cut it off. There's no sense in fighting that if I'm replacing it, so I just cut it. It is pretty gunked up in here. I am going to try to clean that up some and get all the gasket material off of here with a scraper. The water pump actually doesn't look bad. It probably has been replaced because it has 260,000 miles on the Jeep, and that doesn't look like a 260,000 mile pump. So I don't know what was going on there, but we already have it out. We're going to replace it. I'm going to clean up the hardware. As you can see, it's pretty nasty. So it smells really bad. I'm glad you can't smell that through the camera. But we're going to get all this cleaned up. We're going to get the new one on and try to let you see as much of that as possible. So first we're going to take our super clean, go ahead and hit all this in here and let it soak for a little bit while I get the hardware out of the old pump there and get it cleaned up as well. I do have the new pump out. You see here, I've got all the new parts here for it, including that little O-ring you see there. That will go on right here. So we'll get that old one off as well and get the new one on. Got it all sprayed down with the super clean. Really love the foaming action on the aerosol can. So I'm gonna let that sit a minute. Go ahead and start working on the hardware that I left in the pump so I know where each one went. So I'm gonna clean them one by one, which will take a little bit longer, but at least I'll keep them all in order. Well, it's not perfect, but I believe the super clean got it very, very clean. That was really just spraying it down, rinsing it off, and then spraying it down one more time, letting it sit a little bit, and rinsing it off again. Got a lot of that off. Now I got most of the hardware cleaned up with a wire brush there, and I'm gonna work on getting the new pump put together. It looks like it has this piece here. It's going to need to go there for that bypass hose. So I'm going to get that screwed into place on there, and then get the O-ring onto here after I pull this one off. And then we will use a little bit of gasket sealer to put on some toners to make sure it sticks to the pump. We'll get it in place and start threading the bolts in place. Now, as you see here, I got a little bit of grease around where the gasket goes, just kind of make it a little sticky and it'll stick on a little better. And then I got the hose in place with the clamps on loosely, just sitting around the hose. When we get it in place, get 2 bolts in, make sure it's the gasket's nice and straight, and then go ahead and put the rest of the bolts in and start snugging it up. Okay, I have it in place now. Got the hose here. I went ahead and pushed the hose on as I was putting the water pump in place. That way the hose wouldn't be pushing away from the water pump and kind of getting in the way. Went ahead and put these top 2 long bolts in each corner, just kind of hang it in place there. Started threading them just a little bit. Now I'm gonna get the rest of the bolts in place, go ahead and snug it down, and then we'll start getting everything else reattached. Got it all snugged down now. Got the clamps for the bypass hose on tight as well. Now we're going to get this part down into place, and we're going to get our lower radiator hose hooked back up. After we do that, we will clean up this a little bit, and then we'll start getting it back on. Lower radiator hose is back on. Got this covered in super clean. I'm going to go ahead and let it sit for a second longer to get it sprayed off, and I'm going to work on getting it back on. Alright, we got the bracket back in place. As you see, I don't have the bolts all the way screwed in here. Got that one in as well. The only one I don't have in is the one that goes here, as that's the one that holds this piece into place here. And I don't want to get that one locked in yet until I get this one secured, as this will be in the way whenever I try to get to this one. So I'm going to get this one sent in first, then I'll work on this side, get the top secured, and then I'll get this one in here last. Now I have them all snug down. Got the heater core hose that goes into there, and snug that down as well, that holds it in place. So now I'm gonna go backwards and get the power steering mounted back in, AC mounted back in, alternator mounted back in, get all the screws secured for that, and then I'm gonna go ahead and resume the video after that. It's starting to run out of time, so I'm trying to hurry at this point. I have all the accessories put back on. Now we just got to get that tensioner pulley back on here, and then we'll get the belt back on after that. And I should have actually done this sooner, but do make sure that your water pump spins freely before putting everything back together like I already did, but thankfully mine is spinning freely. Idler pulley spinning freely. We're going to get the belt back on, and then we'll start getting the rest of it all put back together. Alright, the belt is back on. Do make sure you remember how the belt goes on, because it does kind of go around a bunch of different ways there. So be mindful of that. Take a picture beforehand, or just have a picture handy from having one on a diagram or something, because I didn't, but thankfully I remembered how it went. So last thing we're going to do here is get the clutch fan and fan shroud back on. As you see, I have been making a nice mess in here. I'm going to have to clean that up. So let's get the fan shroud back on. We're going to do that the opposite way we took it off, and then we can get to putting some fluids back in it after I put that lower radiator hose back on. Can't forget that. Okay, we got the clutch fan and shroud back on now. Got the coolant in and added some to our reservoir over there. So we did run it for a while with the cap off and made sure we got all the bubbles out of it, ran the heater wide open, and just let it run with the cap off for a while, topped it off as necessary, and got all the air bubbles out. When you do put this hard line into the water pump, make sure you do grease that O-ring just so it slides in and it doesn't tear that thing. Another thing to note, as you saw, I had whenever I had the accessory bracket off, I had really easy access to that thermostat housing. If I would have done it all over again, you know, without the time constraints of work, then, you know, I would have done it all after I got that accessory bracket out of the way. It would have been much easier to get to that thermostat housing, but, you know, we still got it done. That was just something, in hindsight, if you don't have to do it in two parts like I did. But as always, thank you for watching here at the Shop Worldwide. Always go check out what Corey's got going on, and check out any of the other videos we got going on with the Miata. Thank you again, and have a great day.